I'll go through the different types of reimbursements
Please.
as sellers are most familiar with them. So what you were just talking about with the FBA fees, that's like the pick and pack fee, or
Pick and pack
sometimes
fee.
it's called weights and dims. And that all comes down to Amazon having the incorrect measurements or weight of your product. So then when they try and place it in the different FBA tiers, the shipping fee tier, it might get bumped up to a higher tier because they think that, the product is a little larger or a little heavier than it really is.
Mm,
And, that can
I see.
happen
Yeah.
for multiple reasons. If you're a reseller and other resellers are shipping in the same product, another seller might have shipped in an older box, maybe a different size, or maybe they've
Ooh,
repackaged it in a different size box and they ship it in. So
interesting.
now you've got this mixed inventory with your product, which maybe is in, the current
Mm,
up-to-date packaging, and you have, the correct sizes for it, but someone else has reboxed it, or even just if a box flap opens up as it's in Amazon's warehouse, when it goes through that cubic scanner, Amazon's going to scan it with the lasers and weigh it, and it's going to register as a much larger size. Amazon will then say, oh, bigger box, bigger
yeah.
fee, and they'll up your fee on that. And then they always seem to raise the fee. They don't as often lower the fee.
True.
Um, so it always works in Amazon's favor. So you get one bad unit that goes through the scanner,
Mm,
increases the size, increases the fee for you and for everyone else selling it. And then, you'll see that spike in your pick and pack fees. And the only way to get that corrected is to issue a remeasure request. So you're basically telling Amazon, hey, go grab that product off the shelf, scan it again. I want to see that, you get the correct dimensions this
mm,
time. So now Amazon will, let's say they correct the dimensions to what they should be, but you're still out that money that they overcharged you. And that's where the second part of this process is a reimbursement. So you first get them to correct the dimensions, then you say, I want my money back for the last 100 shipments or so that you overcharged me by a nickel or a quarter, and and that's the reimbursement side. That category of reimbursements is probably one of the most frequent to happen, but it's a smaller dollar amount. Most of the time you're talking about 5 or 10 cents as is the difference in the FBA fee, or maybe it's as much
mm,
as $1 on some larger items. So it doesn't have that wow factor to say like,
mm,
oh, I need to go correct this because I'm off by $1.
yeah.
But that adds up over time, and every single shipment, every single order that Amazon's shipping out for you, you're overpaying for. So staying on top of that one is very important. There's also a limit on how many remeasure requests you can have every month. It's only 20. So if
Interesting.
you have a catalog with hundreds or thousands of SKUs, it can be really difficult to keep all of them accurately, listed with Amazon on the weights and dims. So staying on top of it, having the visibility into which of your SKUs are being overcharged is the only way that you can really, tackle it and stay on top of it.
All right. And there any
Um,
other types of these are like the some of the initial ones we spoke about. There's more, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the biggest category dollar wise
Mm-hmm.
is lost inbound or missing inbound shipments. And this is where you gave the example of like, we ship in 500 units to Amazon. Amazon receives that shipment and says, oh, we only got 400 of them.
Yeah.
What are you going to do now? Uh, Amazon is Amazon. They're just going to say you have 400 units in your sellable inventory and tough luck. Um, for a missing inbound shipment, the way that you have to file a claim is you have to provide a proof of delivery to show that the product actually got to Amazon, and you have to show proof of ownership that you owned the product before you shipped it to Amazon. And there's some nuances in those documents, and we can get into that in some more detail. But the short of it is,
Mm-hmm.
for a reseller, if you're purchasing your product from a wholesaler, you can use your wholesaler's invoice. So I bought, what did we say, 500 units? I bought 500 units from my supplier. He gives me an invoice. I can show that to Amazon to say, yes, I did own these product before sending it to you. The proof of delivery comes from your shipping carrier. So if you're using Amazon Partnered Carrier, that's great because Amazon is basically the carrier at that point, even if they source it out to UPS or, an LTL company. So they will typically have the POD on file, which makes it very easy. And especially for us,
Mm-hmm.
we've kind of automated that part of it to get the PODs directly from Amazon. But if you're not using Partnered Carrier, you simply get your POD or which is proof of delivery, or a BOL, the bill of lading, from your carrier that shows that it was delivered to Amazon. Open up a claim with Amazon, like right in the shipments page of Seller Central, you click on take action, file a claim, and provide them with the proof of delivery, the proof of ownership, and how many units were missing from that shipment. Technically, that's all that's needed. That's the bare minimum to get a claim filed. Most of the time, Amazon, if it's a small shipment, or a small discrepancy, I should say, they'll just look at it and say, yep, your paperwork is in order. We'll give you credit for what is missing. And that's where the reimbursement comes in. So they'll give you cash back for the missing units. If it's a larger discrepancy, Amazon's going to fight it. They're going to kind of make you jump through hoops. They'll make you pull up an actual bill of lading that has the individual units listed on it. So how many of each SKU, or how many boxes, or how many pallets, depends on how you're shipping it in,
Mm-hmm.
what the weight of that shipment was. And if there's any discrepancies in what Amazon expects from what's on the shipping plan,
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna deny your claim. So best practice, I cannot emphasize this enough to all sellers. When a carrier is picking up your goods from your facility, you must get them to sign the bill of lading, proving that they picked up all the units that you put on that shipment plan. If the trucker doesn't sign off on it to say, yep, I picked up all 500 units, Amazon will just use that as an excuse to say, hey, we can't verify that,
Mm.
the trucker had all 500. He made it here because we have this, proof of delivery. The truck got here, but we have no, proof of what was on the truck.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a tough practice for a lot of sellers to get, into, because it sometimes slows down that shipping process. The truckers don't want to have to count things and sign off on it. They want to just grab it and go and
Mm-hmm.
pretend like, everything is good. But I can't stress it enough. Get that bill of lading signed. Make sure it is as detailed as possible. That also goes back to the weights and dims. If your product has a much lower weight listed on Amazon than what it really weighs, or maybe I should say it the other way around, if the weight in Amazon is heavier than what it really is, then
Mm.
Amazon's going to expect that shipment to weigh more than it actually does. And if they think that you shipped in a lighter
Oh.
pallet of goods or a lighter box of goods, they'll use that as the excuse to say, well,
Interesting.
it's underweight, so you must have miscounted and not sent all 500 units.
Wow.
You're 10 pounds short, so that must be a few units missing.
Damn, man. Interesting.
Yeah, it's all compounding on top of each other. One thing leads into another. But yeah, missing inbound shipments, by far the largest loss of revenue for FBA sellers. So that's just getting your product into Amazon. Once it's in Amazon's warehouse and in their control, then you run into the lost in the warehouse and damaged in the warehouse categories. These are probably, collectively, they're the second largest source of loss. And then depending on what type of product you have, how easily it's damaged, you might see, more damages than lost, or more lost than damages. But collectively, they're by far the second largest source of lost revenue. The good thing with lost and damage is that late last year, late in 2024, Amazon started auto reimbursing for all of the goods that they self-identify as lost or damaged. So damaged, real easy to follow the logic here. They pull something off the shelf. The person packing it up says, nope, this box is crushed, or I can tell it's damaged. They hit a button on their little console there, and it flags that SKU, that FN SKU, as one unit damaged. They throw it in a damage bin. It updates your inventory ledger as one unit damaged. Amazon will find that in the ledger and say, okay, let's give you back money for that one damaged unit. This has been a great you know, change to the program for sellers because Amazon is automating that process. They recognize the damage or they recognize the units lost, and they immediately or within a day usually will generate the reimbursement for you. They're not perfect though. So don't think that you can just rely on Amazon to be 100%, accurate and honest and truthful in what's damaged and what's lost. Since I guess it's been about a year since this new
Yeah.
policy has come into effect, we have found that Amazon is still missing about 10% of the lost or damaged units. So they're auto reimbursing you 90%. That's great, but 10% is still
Yeah.
being lost, or not, I should say, not reimbursed. So that's where you have to, kind of audit them on it. And the inventory defect portal has made it a lot easier because they give you that great transparency to see what units they have self-identified as lost or damaged. 90% of them, or maybe even more, that show up in that portal will get reimbursed by Amazon. But sometimes stuff sits in there and they never reimburse it. And there's really no reason why. They just miss it, or I don't know, it falls through the cracks somehow. And that's for the stuff that they've self-identified. We still find other units that they've lost, or typically lost, that they've lost and they don't put into the inventory defect portal. So you wouldn't even know about it unless you're reconciling, the inventory ledger with your sales reports and the
Mm.
that's where you really need a system like ours to run all those reports and do all the reconciliation, because it would be time consuming to do that manually.